Hello everyone and welcome to the third and final episode of our OCPP tutorial series. Today we'll be looking at the advanced smart charging features of an EV project and how to use them. So like last time, we will start with a completely blank and empty project. However, this time we'll be using two libraries, the LDemo EV charging library and the smart charging library. So first things first, we're going to want to go into the configuration settings. In the settings, you want to make sure that you have your smart charging initialization program set down here. All the other settings should automatically look like this, but make sure you have your initialization program set down here. Once that's done, you can go into the application architect, which is where we'll be doing most of our work like last time. So once we are in the application architect, we're going to create a charge point. We're going to scroll all the way down and select this charge point right here, which contains all the additional features to effectively use the smart charging part of OCPP. Drag and drop it there, and we're going to do the same for the charge point in the OCPP 16 file. Make sure you're taking the one that is below the original one. Same for the connector, and here we go. So all of these, like last time's, are the base names, the default names, which you can change if you want to. Just a quick reminder, you want to make sure you have the right endpoint right here. For the charge point ID, you can either set an ID here yourself, or it will default to using the default one, which is what will be used to connect to the charge point, the station, sorry. The connector, there should be nothing to change here. So like our last project, we're going to copy and paste it multiple times, 7 more times, so that we have 8 charge points. Copy at this level. 7. Perfect. And now we're going to want to generate our project. So once the project has been generated successfully, you want to save this and restart PcVue. And I'll just do that off screen. So I have connected 2 charge points with the simulator. And as you can see, they show up right here. So CP16001 is connected and available, and so is CP16002. So in this view, we can see the status of the charging point. And we can see it's available. However, to see the connector status, we can send a status notification from the simulator. So I've set it as available for the first charge point, and for the second one, I'll just leave it as available as well. Send a status notification, and they show up as green lights now on the software. So the new features for smart charging have been added to the smart charging tab. And as you can see here, we're able to set it up manually, just like in the previous video. But you can also access the new features right here. So you can find down here important information like power limits, hysteresis, and total site power. So essentially, if you go back to the operations tab we saw in the first video, this is where we receive information about the amount of power available compared to what's actually in use, or what's actually being offered, and what's in use. So the smart charging DLL collects this information and compares them to see the difference between what's in use and what is offered, and if what's offered is bigger than what's in use. If what's in use is bigger than what's offered, it will adapt and change it back to the hysteresis value that we saw earlier. And from there, it changes the value based on what is actually needed for the connector. So from here, you can access the planning tab. So the planning tab is quite useful. This is where you'll find different charge groups. I've deselected all of them for what we're going to do next, but these should all be active. So you can take the time to deselect them. And you also have access to the planning schedule. So from here you can schedule different groups to work at different times of the day, whether in the morning or in the afternoon, etc. So the first thing we're going to do is deselect all of these. So as we don't actually have electric vehicles here, we're going to be using the simulator to connect a third charge point. So just make sure that the simulator is still connected because it can sometimes disconnect. Only the simulator, this wouldn't happen in real life. But you can make sure it's connected and send a status notification from each charge point. So going back here, we can see all three of them are connected. And we're going to deselect CP16001 from the group. So we're going to simulate someone plugging a car into the grid. So when you plug in your car, you're either preparing, you're either charging, or you're finishing. You're not available. So we're going to pick preparing, for example, and send a status notification from the first charge point. So as we can see, it's preparing. However, since it's not in the group, it hasn't started charging yet. So if we do the same for 2 or 3, they will be ready to charge as soon as someone plugged in because they're already in the group that is programmed to charge. So we're going to go on CP16002 and do the same thing. Send a status notification. The DL will send a command to charge with a remote start, and it will also send a profile with the power limit we've set earlier. So the active power is lower here, which we can change in the simulator. So we can change it to something closer like 48,000, and we can also set the actual power offered here at 50,000 to match what we've done earlier. And then remember to click Start Meter Values. And if we go back to here, we can see that it has now appeared. I've accidentally set it for the third charge point as well, which isn't active yet, but that's fine. So I've now added CP001 to the group, and it will automatically start charging with the same limits that is set for that charge point. I've also added charge point 3, and it is now charging just like charge point 2. And if you've noticed, the power limit per charge point has gone down. So this is because the total site power is at 100 watts. So it divides that by 3, hence the 33 kilowatts per charge point. So we can come and change it with a different number. Should, should the actual limits of the charge point you have in mind be different. So here I set it to 200 kilowatts. And it is back up to the maximum limit per charge point now. Given that we're at 200, it can go at its limit of 50 kilowatts. It's the same for 150 since we only have 3 charge points. So we're now going to connect a fourth charge point, and if we go back to the to PcVue, we can see that the limit level will be at 25 because we're now at 4 charge points, and the max site power is 100 kilowatts. So you can then also configure each charge point manually. So we're going to switch one of them to manual mode, which you can then control from the operations tab. So let's stop it remotely to see what happens. So now it's out of the planning because we have manually stopped it. We can use it separately and configure it on its own, as well as set power limits that won't affect our previous charge points that are in the group. So you can set a new limit here and then switch to the connector layout and send the profile. So connect to the simulator, make sure that um, each simulator is actually connected, and you can check the log status. And now the charge point will work as programmed and never exceed the power you've set for it. So that's it for today's video, and that will mark the end of our OCPP tutorial series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helped you, and please make sure to like and comment, and see you next time.